Welcome back to Dialogue on Public Issues. I'm John Chowney with Campbellsville University. Today I'm very pleased to be interviewing a colleague here at the university, Dr. Twyla Hernandez. Dr. Hernandez is an associate professor of missions in the CU School of Theology. She's also executive director of an organization called the Hispanic Baptist Bible Institute. Dr. Hernandez, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Notice I did not attempt to give the name of the institute in Spanish.
I think you should have.
Well, it would have been embarrassing for all of us. Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from Tennessee.
We'll forgive you.
Middle Tennessee, but I'm a diehard UK fan.
Okay, you don't have the orange of some of, like Dr. Early and others in the School of Theology.
I was raised to not be for UT.
Okay, very good.
So, grew up in Tennessee, lived there until I went overseas as a missionary to Argentina. Came back to Kentucky to further my education, and God left me here. And
very good.
one of the reasons that I'm still here is to work among Hispanic churches and try to raise up leaders to reach people for Christ.
And your husband is Reverend Clemente Hernandez?
Yes.
Tell us just a little bit about his ministry.
Yes. So he is a pastor, church planter. We planted several churches and working in migrant ministries and pastoring a church currently. He's originally from Mexico and loves the Lord.
Amen. And you are in God's country, here in Kentucky.
Of course.
And Campbellsville
Of
specifically.
course.
Now tell us about your duties here at Campbellsville as a professor and your particular area of teaching and emphasis.
Okay, so I teach in the School of Theology. We have a broad range of classes. One of the things that's greatest about Campbellsville University is every student has to take 2 classes in the Bible. And so we're all a part of that. We all join in on teaching those classes. And then I'm specifically the lead professor for our missions program. We have a missions major and minor and have students preparing to go out to other areas to do missions.
What is the purpose of having a major? I mean, it's kind of obvious, I suppose, but what can a student do with a major or minor, for example, in Christian missions?
It's a great question. We try to prepare ourselves, our students, for any type of cross-cultural ministry, whether it's here in the U.S. or overseas, any type of ministry that leads to crossing language, crossing socioeconomic boundaries, crossing any type of cultural boundaries, rural, urban. We're training our students to do that, and so they can work for nonprofit organizations. They can do missions. They can work in churches, preparing others to do missions. There's just a wide variety.
I've noticed in knowing a few of your students that have had majors or minors, whatever, in missions, they often will pick up a foreign language or some other academic area that will help them.
Right.
And not just a Christian studies major.
Right. We encourage our students to have some type of area that will allow them to work in a secular workplace as well. That might be a way to provide financially for their ministry if it's not otherwise provided for. And so we have them learning languages. We have them learning how to teach English as a second language. And a variety of other things.
Right. And to me, a part of the missions approach that you're following, the theology school is following, is a biblical model. And that is of having, not necessarily being full-time, we all are called to be full-time in ministry, of course, but having, not depending upon our Christian calling for our exclusive income stream.
Right.
And that, to me, is a biblical model, as exemplified by Paul and others.
It is. It's tent making 101 that you find throughout Acts, throughout the New Testament. It's great if you can have a full-time ministry job.
Sure.
But those are fewer and far between now.
And those are particularly difficult in small ministries. If a student is called, a person's called to do a nonprofit just in a local community or something, I mean, it's very difficult to make your living
live
that
off
way.
of that, right.
At least in the beginning.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Now, what are some of the missions-related projects that you're involved in here at CU and that you are involving your students in as well, along with other colleagues?
Right. One of the things that I love about Campbellsville University is that missions is not just fixated in the School of Theology. Right. It is our lifestyle. So we have the football team doing missions. We have School of Nursing doing missions, School of Education. And that's awesome to see everyone get involved. One of the things, the most recent partnership that we've established is with Buckner International out of Texas. And it's an organization that works specifically with orphans and other vulnerable children and in trying to strengthen families. And so we just completed our shoe project where we've been taking up tennis shoes for children. There's a group of us going down this weekend to take those to Dallas and to work in their distribution center for a while. And then in March, we'll be taking a group to Mexico, and one of the things we'll be doing is distributing shoes to vulnerable children there.
Very good. Buckner has a global presence, don't they, or a multinational?
They do. They started in Texas, and then they've moved out there in Mexico, Guatemala, Peru, Kenya, and several other countries.
And I think the Buckner International actually has Kentucky roots.
It does. Father Buckner started out here in Kentucky and then journeyed on to Texas.
I think he was pastor, was he not, of a church we have close working relations with, Albany?
I think
First
so.
Baptist, I believe, is he actually pastored it there.
I need
at
to
one
look
point.
back at that.
I think I'm correct on that and recall that because I'm from nearby Albany, and it caught my attention.
Yeah.
Now, you're also, as I mentioned in my introduction, involved as director and one of the founders, actually, of the Hispanic Baptist Bible Institute. I'll let you tell us the name in Spanish, but tell us about the history and mission of the Institute.
So in Spanish, it's the Instituto Bíblico Bautista Hispano, and you could have done that.
It would have been very slow and very accented improperly.
It would have been Southern Spanish.
It would have been the Southern drawl, the form of Spanish.
But it just means
with a few uhs interspersed.
It just means Hispanic Baptist Bible Institute. And we started in 2005 here in Kentucky. A group of us the year before got together because the Hispanic population was growing so quickly and we needed to plant more churches. But to plant more churches, we needed more leaders. And so we designed the Bible Institute to train our leaders so that we could do more here in Kentucky. I'd like to say our vision took in all the other possibilities, but we were really just focused on what we needed at that time. Since then, God has blessed us, and we've been able to use our program in different states around here in the U.S., and then also in Mexico, Peru, and right now in Cuba is where we have our greatest number of students, actually.
And we provide basically certificate training. Is it a 2-year, 3-year?
It's a 3-year program,
program
with typical classes, what you would expect in a Bible Institute, theology, New Testament, Old Testament. And at the end of each of the 3 years, they receive a certificate, and then a diploma, and then an advanced diploma. And so right now we have about 250 students studying in combining all of our centers, and we're getting ready to go down to Cuba next week for the graduations down there, and we're going to have about 120 students graduating.
Okay. Now tell us why the Institute is operational in Cuba. Why of all places?
I know, right?
And I don't mean that disparagingly, but when you think of Cuba, we think of Castro and communism.
Well, it's a communist country where
unfriendly to the Christian faith, particularly evangelical.
Exactly. And so, but the thing is, ever since the 90s, the Spirit of God has been moving on the island of Cuba, and people are coming to Christ in droves. A pastor told me the last time I was down there that we work on the eastern end of Cuba, the end opposite of where Havana is. And he said, in our convention, in our area, it would be hard to find a church that's not growing. And I wish we could say the same thing here.
Exactly.
But people are coming to Christ. They're having to start more churches. And so the way we partner there is we're helping train leaders in a relatively quick and easy way. So they're able to go out and start new missions, new churches. And we're just coming alongside our Christian brothers and sisters there and working together with them.
Now, the cost of that program for the student is very, very moderate, is it not?
Well, for the student in Cuba, they don't pay anything because
Very good.
the average wage in Cuba is $20 a month. And so they have no money to be able to do. They're lucky to have
So
enough
this
to
truly
eat.
is mission. When you invest in this truly is mission.
It is. And so we raise money to be able to support that, to be able to do that. And so they don't pay anything down there, and we provide their materials and
Where does your money come from?
donors. We talk to churches, we talk to individuals, and look for people who can catch the vision to understand what we're about and want to see more people come to
Kentucky
Christ.
Baptists have supported the group.
Yes,
The
historically.
Kentucky Baptist WMU has been a major funder
Yes.
of this enterprise, as well as churches and individuals.
Yes.
And I'm going to just do a little
Such as yourself.
advertising for Saloma Baptist Church.
Yes.
Saloma Baptist Church budgets money annually, as well as makes special offerings from time to time for your work there.
Yes, Saloma has supported us since the beginning, I believe, and you yourself individually, thankfully, have contributed. You guys are getting ready to provide some help for our graduations that are coming
We
up, and so some of your members are going with
Yes,
us on this trip.
Dr. Hedgepath and Reverend Pete Hedgepath are going along with you and Reverend Clemente.
Yes.
And so that's exciting, and looking forward to hearing more from both couples upon your return. It's hard for us to understand that in Cuba this is going on. I mean, as I understand, there's really not enough ministers.
No.
They're not. The need is the church is spreading so rapidly. The Holy Spirit is moving so quickly and amazingly there that that's why the work of the Institute is so critical.
Yeah, it's amazing to think, but I take it back to when the communist Russian government fell in the 90s. They were essentially propping up the Cuban government financially. And when that was no longer a viable option, the whole system in Cuba failed. And people realized at that point that the government did not have all the answers, and that the only true peace could be found through Jesus Christ. And so that's why people are coming to Christ. They realize that that's the only answer. And so the problem and solution has come that no churches can be built since the revolution took place in 1959. So no new church buildings. They find it hard to even get permits to remodel or fix buildings. But the interesting solution came from the government itself in Cuba when the church leaders went to the government and said, well, you won't let us build new buildings, but it's not safe to have this many people in a building. What should we do? And they said, just do it at your houses. And so a house church movement grew up out of that. You know, what sometimes is meant for evil, God can use for good.
Right.
And that's what's happened. So many of the missions have grown up out of churches. Two of our Bible institutes are founded in churches that are in the backyard of the pastor, basically. And so students meet and have classes open air, and but are happy to do so.
That again sounds like and seems to be quite comparable to the New Testament church, the early church,
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of the house church movement and such.
You meet wherever you can. Buildings aren't necessary.
Right.
Huge budgets aren't necessary. All that's necessary is God.
If someone is interested in finding out more about the Institute or perhaps providing a charitable donation,
Yes.
how can they find out more about the group?
They
the work?
can do that by going to our website. It's, again, in Spanish. So it's instituto-biblical.org. So let me spell that.
Okay.
instituto-biblico.org.
Okay.
But when you go, there's an option to choose Spanish or English.
Okay.
And so you can choose either language.
Very good. And like I said, I'm sure charitable donations, both to the Institute as well as Campbellsville University, are certainly welcome in this season of Advent. We would encourage. As we do this interview, we are in the season of Advent,
Right.
leading up to our celebration of Christmas. What words of advice would you give to our audience in terms of really making the holiday season, the Christmas season, a Christ-centered Christmas versus merely observing a winter holiday? And I'm not talking about militant actions of, smacking somebody who says Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas, or waving your Bible and screaming at them, or anything of that sort. But what can we do as believers? What should we be doing in this season of the year?
One thing that I think would help many of us is to focus on the word simplicity. I think we get so worked up. There's so much to be done with family obligations, church obligations, civic obligations. And we need to learn to put some boundaries there so that we can focus on the true meaning of Christmas. Because what you end up doing is just getting tired and being angry at the whole Christmas season. And so if we could simplify it a little bit, then we could focus on Jesus, which is the reason for the season. And so that's my advice. That's what I try to do. Simplicity, a little bit of cutting down the calendar a little bit is important.
And we buy lavish gifts that many people can't afford, run up credit card debt that it takes us a year to pay off. And I contrast that with a country like Cuba, where you said the average monthly income was about $20 per month.
Yeah.
And, it would almost be insulting to give someone, one of our family members or someone we like, a $20 gift card. I'm sure they would take it, but they would probably say, why didn't you give me a $50 gift card or something? Quite a contrast in the context.
I want to come to your house for Christmas.
Well, if you come to my house for Christmas, you may get an envelope with a statement in it saying, this donation was made to whatever charitable cause in your honor.
Yeah.
This is what these monies at our house for the last 2 or 3 years, and I really think the family it's become a part of our Christmas. Before we open any individual gifts, I hand out cards, an envelope, and in that envelope there will be a picture and a card from my wife and myself to the family members saying we've made a donation to a Christian charitable cause, doing social ministry, Christian social ministry, helping people.
Yeah,
And,
I like that.
To buy chickens for someone in a village in Africa or whatever.
Yeah.
And everybody gets a card, and they have to go around the room and open them, show that, and read it, and we talk about it.
Yeah.
And that takes a while.
That's good.
But that's before we open any of the
Gifts.
the commercialized gifts that
Yeah.
that $50 gift card.
Yeah. I think I just read something where somebody did that same type of thing. I think that's great. It's one way to focus on the fact that we have our needs met and others don't.
Right.
And so I think putting that emphasis, and I've seen another thing where people said buy a child something to read, something to wear, and something that they want. limiting that. It can get out of hand.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then if that child goes back to school and they're sitting beside someone whose parents don't have that same amount of money and they got a sweater for Christmas, it creates a sense of demeaning, a sense of I'm not good enough.
Right.
And so if we all limited, that would be a good idea.
And I would encourage anyone that's watching or listening our show, just one way, one small, simple way of honoring the message of Christmas, the Christ of Christmas, the babe of Bethlehem, is to reach out to someone in need and do something for them.
Yes.
Share a smile, not just buy them a gift, but also share the peace, the hope, the peace, the joy, and love that Christ came to give us.
Yeah. And remember to be thankful. We just finished
Absolutely.
Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
But thankfulness isn't limited to November. I think when we're grateful, we remember all that we do have.
There
what we
is a
need
joy
and want.
in giving. There really is a blessing in giving. The blessing of giving is not that I'm going to drive a Mercedes-Benz if I'm generous enough. That's the so-called prosperity gospel, and I won't go there. But we achieve a peace and a blessing. We get a blessing from God when we give of ourselves and our resources to other people.
Yeah, it's a joy. It really is.
Another thing that as Christian people, believers during this season of the year, it seems to me that we have a unique opportunity that even those who are not believers or who are not in the church, however we want to describe that, but they're more sensitive to the gospel. They know something is going on.
Yeah.
What can we do to share the love of Jesus other than giving them something?
Well, I think one of the things is inviting them to church. I saw a recent statistic that said that people are more likely to go to church at Christmas time than even at Easter time.
Right.
And so I, as a Christian, want everyone to know the peace that I've found in Jesus Christ, and I think all of us do. And one way to, if you don't feel comfortable sharing, doing a whole gospel presentation, anybody can invite anyone to church and maybe pick them up and take them if they need a ride and walk them in, because sometimes going into churches is a little intimidating. That's something simple that we can all do.
Then there are those in the Christian community during the holiday season. They spend a lot of time bemoaning that Christ has been removed from Christmas, and we all have that feeling, the commercialization of Christmas, the de-Christianizing of Christmas, so to speak. But sometimes we get militant in our reaction to that. What words of advice, if someone goes to Walmart, and the Walmart person says Happy Holidays rather than Merry Christmas, how do we handle that as Christians, as believers?
Say Happy Holidays to you too. There's no reason to get mad if someone is wishing you well.
Right.
There's no need for that. And I think one of the things that we as Christians need to do is live out the holiday spirit year-round.
Good point.
If we did it year-round, then that might make a difference in our country, our nation, where we're not having these types of conversations. But if someone wishes me Happy Holidays, thank you.
It's better than saying have a lousy holiday.
Yeah, right, right. And so I can say Merry Christmas to them, and I think they'll take it in the same way. Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever. It's a good wish.
Right, right.
Receive it as such.
We're down to under a minute. Closing comments that you would like to say and the encouragement you would give to people out there who may be going through some tough times.
Christmas is hard for a lot of people. We've maybe lost a loved one, or maybe we're not in a great place in our life financially or in other ways. The thing about Christmas is it's there for everyone. But what's there for everyone is Jesus Christ. And He is there to give peace. He is there to be with you, to be present with you in your pain and whatever you're going through. And trust in Him.
Amen. Dr. Twyla Hernandez, we wish you Godspeed in your travels and the work you're doing here at CU through the Institute in Cuba and elsewhere. This is John Chowning on behalf of Campbellsville University, thanking you for being with us and wishing all of you a blessed and joyful Christmas.